Alright, be careful,
spoke Kaminari, turning towards the small fleet of agents behind him. Huddled in the largest convention center in Esaha City, Kaminari watched as agents began setting themselves up for the capture of this suspect that escaped the Commission's headquarters recently. The center was silent, sans for the raging storm outside and the few footsteps that echoed from the scuffling of shoes. They were small in number, but over the years he had noticed a growth in their ranks due to the war effort.
Everything alright, Chargebolt?
One of them asked on approach.
Yeah, we're on schedule,
he advised.
Just make sure everyone is on standby.
All good to go,
spoke another over the comms, ringing through all earpiece devices present.
How can you be so sure that they're trustworthy?
Asked Kaminari's fellow commission agent.
What if they turn on us?
I know they won't,
reassured Kaminari, his eyes glancing over the large empty hall overhead.
Trust me, I've got a good feeling.
A scoff echoed in Kaminari's ear, the disdain from the agent's voice clear. He knew it was a risk to bring in one of the Commission's witnesses into the fray, let alone one that had admitted to their own crimes against society. But Kaminari had no doubt in his mind about your capabilities. Having to organize another coup required some tact, especially after the frustrating experiences of top pro heroes such as the likes of Ground Zero, Red Riot, Shoto, and even the current number one, Deku. All of his friends had levels of success though, learning more about how the target moved, how he thought, and who he targeted. Kaminari enlisted the help of Cellophane, to help chase the culprit upon sight, seeing as he had not had any partner or sidekick matches for a long time. The longest out of all of his friends, actually. The exception was this thief he divulged in confidence, but outside of that, Zero was his best bet. Discussing the plan with the Commission agents helped a great deal in garnering aid in numbers, but Kaminari also saw the same pattern in all of the reports written by his friends and former classmates. Seek, the man of mystery, targeted their partners on the field, which in the case of all of them were emotionally connected with his friends, fiancé or not. Kaminari was never one to read the situation, unlike Midoriya who noted everything he could. However, reading into the interrogator's reports as well made it sound logical, especially because they were Shinso's partner for years. The rumble of thunder rolled through the convention center, while the flash of lightning decorated it with long shadows from its tall windows. It was desolate, empty of life, until the slick steps of wet feet entered into the large foyer. Seek leaned against one of the large pylons, his shoulders drooping beside him in exhaustion while the cold from his wet clothes clung onto his skin. A heavy breath escaped his lips, heaving to catch his breath from the earlier encounter that night. This was the first ounce of shelter he found from the rain. He ran his wet gloves through his hair, pulling his fringe aside in hopes to rid of the rain that drenched him. He felt the instant tugs of a weak smile, chuckling at the thought of his predicament so far, and possibly another dry clean of his clothes. Then his eyes, calm, suddenly widened at the sound of a voice, humming a tune through the center. The acoustics echoed throughout the eerie and empty darkness, only lit briefly by cracks of lightning outside. He felt something come over him, losing all senses from the chill in his breath to merely his vision. A golden glow flickered in his eyes, unlike his own, taking control of his faculties, yet also capturing all that he was. This was a familiar feeling, until the glow in his eyes brightened. All fight in him lost. Seek slowly stood, his feet dragging along the clean floors while he followed the voice, leaping over boundaries and walking great lengths until he found himself at a set of double doors left open, entering into a large concert hall. The voice continued to sing, again and again, repeating the melody that danced through the sky while he slowly approached the stage from high above the seats. You stood center stage, still with an anklet on your person, while you lulled the man towards you, pulling him in with your lullaby. Honing your skill was difficult when the commission was over your shoulder. With the anklet still on, you couldn't use the full range of your quirk, more so for their safety than yours. It was a handicap you had to deal with, after Kaminari had suggested your involvement in this capture. You agreed on 2 conditions: less pressure on the anklet, and that you only spoke to Kaminari. Well, Charge Bolt. To your surprise, they agreed. Your eyes glowed while you sang, watching the man's languid steps towards the stage.
Good work, Monange.
Complimented Kaminari in your ear.
Keep him busy a little longer.
A smile appeared while you sang, the feeling of his voice in your ear somewhat pleasing while you performed. Still, this song that bubbled from you was different from most. There was something ethereal about it that connected you to this man. A deep and dark feeling that persisted in this man's life, his soul and being intertwined all into song. It was melancholic. It was sad. Tragic beyond comparison to most works you've read from Shakespeare to Plato. There was a soul in this man built on years that no normal man would endure. You wondered, who was he? Seek stopped a body's length from you, his eyes glowing golden and his expression still. You stared into his eyes through the rain that had soaked his skin, and couldn't help wondering if he was crying this whole time. You kept up your song, your quirk in effect, yet the curiosity ticked in your head while you approached the man with quiet footsteps, despite the anklet clinking against your ankle every so often.
Monange? What are you doing?
Asked Kaminari. Your hand reached out towards the man's cheek, rubbing away the tears that were surely there. This man had lost, you thought, through your performance. He had lost a part of him somewhere in his life. How long ago you couldn't tell. He had fought harder than many, had gained so much praise only for it to be ripped apart. It was a cycle, as if he had lived many lifetimes, and yet still looked no older for someone to endure so much. It was almost romantic, like the books you've read. The sudden grip on your wrist caught you off guard when the glow from his eyes changed, and his eyes now set on you. He gripped onto your throat, his palm growing warm, while you saw a smile on his face, tisking disapprovingly.
Sugar.
Softly whispered Seek while a light appeared by his wrist, growing larger.
Now isn't the time for you to learn about me. But I can keep a secret if you can. Where is she?
Everyone, get down there now!
Yelled Kaminari in your ear. You stared at the man, your eyes glowing dimmer from your quirk, while that warm feeling began to grow hotter.
I don't know who you're talking about.
I'll be blunt. Where is the general?
How do you know?
I've met her one too many times. Except I need to find her now.
I don't know.
The heavy footfalls of agents storming the hall caught Seek's eye. Glancing at all of the men and women with firearms in hand, aimed all towards him. You noticed too, your eyes landing on Kaminari, who stood there with his finger pointed towards the man who held you. Sparks of electrical currents flashed from his person, ready in wait.
Give it up, Seek. You're surrounded.
Warned Kaminari, catching Seek's attention. That warmth soon felt like a fire in your throat, almost suffocating you while that light brightened, the remnants of a sigil floating about by Seek's arm. You saw his eye land on you with a small smirk, yet it was gentle now, his eyes smiling at you.
You shoot me, you take them too.
Reminded Seek.
Unless they're collateral, I'd suggest you point elsewhere.
CQ, by order of the Public Hero Commission, stand down and come quietly.
Informed the agent standing next to Kaminari. Seek only smiled. There was no change, as if he blatantly ignored the agent, keeping his focus on you.
It seems you've come a long way.
He spoke.
Trust yourself.
You stared into his snake-like eyes, still with the echoes of those feelings you felt course through your heart, through your song. There was something good about him, yet it was muddied in the waters of his mind.
She's with the front.
You slowly answered in a whisper. Seek nodded in respect, until a sudden burst of light showered from the stage, blinding you and those around you in a blanket of warmth. Whatever cold the storm brought in, this quirk eliminated all that it was, if only for a few brief moments. Groans echoed in the concert hall while agents squinted their eyes from the blast. Despite his protective eyeglasses, the blast was bright enough for him to turn away, brighter than his own electrical current. Yet Kaminari was able to recover quicker than most others. He eyed the stage, finding Seek missing, but your clothes in a pile until a small head poked up from them. Kaminari froze, finding you, now a child, on stage, barely covered by your clothes. He panicked momentarily, trying to jump onto the stage to cover you up, lifting you in his arms and keeping you decent in front of a crowd of agents. The loud and violent clang of the anklet you wore fell onto the timber floors, catching the agent's attention.
Right then, Charge Bolt. I'd say that was a write-off.
Commented the agent with a disgruntled and agitated tone laced in his voice.
Look, no one got hurt,
Reassured Kaminari.
and they agreed to this, despite the risk to them and us.
Corrected the agent.
We'll talk more back at headquarters. Actually, I'll head back to mine. What? They're not in the right state to undergo a debriefing. And as their bodyguard assigned by the Commission, I have to exercise their safety.
The agent stared at Kaminari, flabbergasted by his somewhat formal explanation on the whole ordeal, and also for his logic. He sighed in exasperation while he signaled for the rest of the team to leave the premises, eyeing the pro-hero with suspicion.
You better not make me regret this, Charge Bolt.
He droned, only to be met by the usual grin from the hero. As the hall emptied itself of the agents, Kaminari stared at you while you sat without hassle in his arms, noticing your curious eye on him. The stare you gave was a little unnerving and awkward, causing Kaminari to utter a weak chuckle until the rumble of thunder rolled above from outside the convention center. He felt you jump in his arms, huddling yourself back into your clothes, hiding away from the noise. It caught him by surprise while he clutched onto your body, immediately collecting the anklet from the floor before he too exited the hall. Kaminari safely placed you in his car while you still huddled under your clothes, flinching from the crackle of lightning that lit the sky and the sound of thunder that reverberated in the car. By the time he had reached his home, Kaminari found that you refused to leave the car at first, until the storm spooked you into scrambling into his arms. Covered from the rain, Kaminari rushed into his home. A modest studio apartment, more so a warehouse conversion of sorts. It helped in keeping his work and personal life together. But also, the space was undeniably difficult to resist. He carried you inside the large warehouse floor, decorated in an assortment of furniture in eclectic styles. He still wasn't the most fashionable person in the world, but over the years he had learned to make a space work for him. He gently placed you on an old couch of his before pulling out drawers to search for more suitable clothes for you, until a strike of lightning caught his eye from above. A roar of thunder boomed through the warehouse while you yelped. You immediately dug into your clothes, hiding yourself away in fear. What he didn't account for was the large skylights that painted the storm, revealing every crackle of lightning that shot past in an instant.
Hey, it's okay.
Reassured Kaminari while he brought one of his old print tees to you.
Nothing's going to hurt you.
You only whined in response, keeping your face covered from Kaminari if only to protect yourself from the storm. He was confused. In fact, during days when it rained, you oftentimes smiled at the sight, curling yourself with a book here in his home every time he returned from a day of work. The months being around you taught him a lot of things, but not enough, he thought, while he stared down at you.
You've never been afraid of a storm,
he commented, while he slipped the tea over you, after coaxing you out from your hiding place to do so. You whined while you slid back under the covers and comfort of your clothes, watching the walls light from the skylight above. You scrunched your face, hoping that it would block out all light and noise from you. The more the storm raged, the more fearful you were, now huddling on the couch into the smallest position you could make. You trembled with every roar that reached your ears and traveled through your body. Kaminari watched your body quiver with fear wrapped in your clothes. He stared up at the skylights and hummed in thought, almost regretting finding fittings to act as blinds or curtains for them. If only he knew he would find himself in this situation, he continued to wonder.
There's nothing to be afraid of,
he spoke softly. laying a hand atop the clothes you hid under.
It'll pass.
You peeked your head from the hem, staring up with tear-stained eyes before you looked around the room, pointing towards a pile of books on a table close by. Kaminari followed your lead, walking towards the books and picking one in his hands, spotting you shake your head at his response.
Not this one?
He asked, before he continued to pick a book, one by one. Eventually he found a notebook, finding you pointing at it vigorously. Confused, Kaminari quickly skimmed through it, noticing that there were a few notations, but mostly empty pages. Come to think of it, you haven't spoken a word since you turned, affected by the quirk's effects. Did it have to do with your quirk and how it functioned? Were you really like Shinso? In a way. Kaminari strode towards you, picking up a pen along the way and handing both it and the notebook to you, noticing how you held the pen in your small hand, grasping it entirely in your palm. You were a child in essence, slowly scrawling some words on the notebook before you turned it to him.
I'm scared.
It read, from your messily scrawled handwriting. You flinched from the sound of thunder above, hugging onto the notebook as a reflex.
Can you speak?
Asked Kaminari, earning a shake of your head. You wrote on another page just as slow as the last, turning to show him the words that surprised him the most.
I'm sick.
It read.
Since when?
Long time.
You wrote on another page. Sick? From what? There was no record of any illnesses or related ailments in your history, at least in the Commission's register. Anything prior to your involvement with the Front's organization was removed or destroyed. Kaminari only discovering this when he did a deep dive on you since the beginning of this service. He watched you turn page after page, writing these short words in your messy and unsteady hand.
Too loud.
One read.
Scary.
Read another.
I'm bad.
You flinched from the thunder and lightning before you pulled your clothes over your head again, dropping the notebook and pen on the floor by the couch. Kaminari stared at the last page on the floor. I bad, it read. He wondered where this negativity came from at such a young age, even going so far if these were your true feelings despite your state. The sight of you trembling in fear broke his heart. That bubbly, light-hearted and sometimes teasing nature of yours, despite the current situation, was nowhere to be seen. It felt like a shadow of yourself, now seeing you like this. He contemplated on what to do before his eyes darted around, perusing through a box of old things he owned, pulling out something that might just help. With a grin, Kaminari walked around the warehouse floor, picking up a few items along the way, before sitting by the couch with you.
Hey,
he whispered, with his hand on your small shoulder again.
I've got something that you might like.
You slowly peeked one eye out from under your clothes to spot a strange contraption in his hand. Curious despite your minor flinch from the storm, you peeked your head from the covers, finding a device of some sort attached between a set of old headphones and an acoustic guitar that sat comfortably on Kaminari's lap. He quickly slipped the headphones on your head, the fit of it snug on your ears, before a flash of lightning caught your eye. You scrunched your face again to block the sudden light until the sound of strings entered your ears, drowning out the sound of the thunder that rolled after. You slowly opened your eyes, watching Kaminari strum on the acoustic guitar, the bass and tenor tingling into your ears. It was all you could hear while you watched the smile on Kaminari's face, His fingers dexterously strummed and plucked the strings, soft and gentle in his rhythm and his melody. Even with every flash of lightning that followed after, or the rolling thunder that accompanied the storm, all you saw was Kaminari, happily strumming along. Your tears soon disappeared from your eyes, replaced by a cheerful smile, while you bobbed with the music Kaminari played. He grinned, seeing your once frightened and scared expression turn into the bright smile he knew you had. His momentum grew in rhythm, finding it safe to up the tempo and that beat until he was in his element. It brought back memories of his academy days, of festivals and performances, and generally all of the practice he endured. Yet never in his life would he have imagined that it would come to this, comforting you during a storm. Kaminari played for as long as his fingers would allow him to. He couldn't help but be driven by the smile you held. The storm did not cease, unfortunately, and Kaminari couldn't keep up with his strumming, feeling the strain and soreness in his fingertips. Luckily, he found headphones that were also noise-cancelling, having to keep an eye on you and hold your hand everywhere you went. Communication became an exchange between notes, with Kaminari having to take the notebook and pen with him. Entertaining you was one thing. Getting you to sleep was another. At first, he left you in his room while he stayed on the couch, but it wasn't long until he found you standing by him, tugging at his shirt. Kaminari turned in his dozy stupor to find a note in his face.
I stay with you.
It read, spotting the tears that threatened to spill from your eyes and still with headphones on.
Okay, jump in,
spoke Kaminari, signaling for you to join. You climbed onto the couch, hiding your face in his chest, when the sound of thunder boomed across the sky. He held on to you gently, feeling your face nuzzle into him until the soft sounds of your breath caught his ear, his warmth comforting you into slumber. Kaminari wondered about many things. He wondered what you suffered. Despite your muteness, he couldn't deduce whether this was quirk-related or not. It was something he thought to remember when you no longer suffered from the effects of this quirk, which, after numerous reports, only lasted approximately 12 hours at best. He had to wait until morning.
See you tomorrow, mon ange.
He whispered, soon drifting to sleep to the sound of the storm and the rain rhythmically tapping on his windows. Kaminari groaned, feeling the sunlight permeate through his eyelids from the skylights above. The skies were blue and clear, only glistening against the window's wet surface from the storm last night. Investing in some blinds was probably on his agenda, now waking to the bright light, until something nuzzled into the crook of his neck, moaning from the slight movements he made on the couch. You slept soundly, unaware of the state you were in despite you cuddling to Kaminari on the old couch. The both of you sank into its cushions, now with you back to normal in your fully grown adult body. Kaminari choked in both fluster and embarrassment, attempting to avoid any eye contact with you despite your constant need to cuddle next to him. He floundered about while trying not to wake you, finding he still had an old tattered throw on the back of the couch. He pulled it immediately, covering you and him under it in order to keep the sight of you away. Still, that didn't rid his fluster. Kaminari listened to your low hum, broken in between notes in your sleep. He soon recognized it, the strumming nature of his guitar reflecting in your sleepy talk, the song he played last night to calm you from the raging storm. He felt your voice vibrate against his chest and along his collarbone to the point it felt ticklish. He cleared his throat to rid him of the sensation, but it didn't stop the smile that fell on his face, soon embracing you in his arms while you comfortably laid next to him. Kaminari stared up at the blue morning sky, and not long after, joined in with your slightly off-key and broken tune, his resonance vibrating against you in your slumber. Questions can wait. Again, he thought,